Welcome, one and all. Welcome to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I am your host, Kevin King. He is I, and I am him, the 800 Credit Score Man himself. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming in today and giving me a little bit of your time. 30 minutes every Saturday, 1:30 Central Standard Time, right here on Spreaker.com. This is the 800 Credit Score Man Show. So look, I want to start off the day. I want to let you know we're going to talk about several things today. The first thing that we're going to talk about is actually 3 things that affect your credit score. Now, I'm going to take a nuanced approach to this because there is nuance to this credit game. And yes, believe me, it is a game. You've got to know the rules. You've got to know how to play so you can take advantage of them. So 3 things that affect your credit score. And I'm going to take a nuanced approach to this. So don't get your pen and paper out thinking you're going to get to write down, well, first thing, I ought to pay my bills on time, and second thing, I ought to do this, and third thing, I ought to do that. That's not the approach that we're going to take today, although you will get those tips within what we're going to talk about today. So I want to give you that warning, I guess, if you will, right off top. And then we're also going to talk about things that people with good credit have in common. There are several things that people with good credit have in common. Most of these will probably not surprise you that these people have these things in common, but I know that at least one of these things will, because we have a different mindset when it comes to credit, how to get it, how to maintain it, and things of that nature. So there will be that. There are things that people have in common that have good credit. And when I say good credit, I'm talking about primarily people with excellent credit. So if you're at a 760 and above, as you know, because you've been listening to the 800 Credit Score Man Show faithfully, and if you haven't, you can always go back to Spreaker.com and listen to all of the shows. You can go there, Spreaker, SPREAKER.com, and listen, or catch them on iTunes, as well as SoundCloud and Google Play for you Android users. So you know that the credit scoring system runs from 300 to 850. So you can see wherever, if you know your credit score, and you should know your credit score if you've been listening, you've gotten that credit score now and you know what it is, then you should know that it runs from 3 to 850. So I'm talking about people with a 760 and above. These are excellent credit, which is really only 1%, I think it said 1% of consumers have like an 845 to an 850. And maybe that's the only 1% actually have an 850. But again, those credit scores fluctuate. So if you got an 850 in January, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have an 850 come June. And it's not because you have done anything. System changes, things change, and so their algorithms and their formulas may have changed, and your credit score moves. It fluctuates. We talked about that just last week. We talked about that. If you need more information, go back and listen to that particular show. So let's jump into it. 3 things that affect your credit score. The first thing I want to mention to you about what affects your credit score is discipline. Discipline affects your credit score. You have to have the discipline to pay your bills on time. If that bill is due on the 15th of the month, then you need to make that payment by the 15th of the month. That's how you get and you develop the habits that'll keep you having a good credit score. If you make your payments on time, if you're a person that's always paying at the last minute, you're always on the run. Some people still drive themselves to the bank or drive themselves to Target to pay their bill at the actual place. If you're one of those people, most likely, once upon a time, you didn't have the time, or you forgot, it slipped your mind, and you didn't make it to make that payment on time. So you've got to have discipline and make your payments on time each time and every time. Now, you can go back and listen to previous shows and listen to some of the strategies and things I told you guys about making them on time and paying and who to pay on time. But make sure you make your payments on time. People with that kind of discipline. So I have said to you, if you have to be late, just don't be 30 days late. so it doesn't hit your credit report, right? Because we're preserving and protecting our credit scores here. So if you have to be late, just don't be 30 days late. But people with great credit scores, they have discipline, and they don't worry about those things because they have enough discipline to go ahead and make their payments on time every time. You gotta have that discipline. Also, they have discipline not to get into too much debt in the first place. Oftentimes, that's what happens with us. We get into too much debt in the very first place, and then we have trouble making those payments on time. It's not because you forgot all of the time. It's not because you lost your job or something detrimental happened to you in your life, something bad happened to you in your life. It's simply because you just have too much debt. People file bankruptcy all the time because they just have too much debt and they can't maintain that lifestyle, and it becomes an issue and a problem for them. So not to get into too much debt in the first place is how some people with good credit, that's how they work. So they have the discipline to pay on time, and then they just don't get into too much debt in the first place. Then they sacrifice. People with good discipline, they actually sacrifice for the things that they want. So they don't necessarily charge everything. They don't go get it right away. Sometimes they save for them. If you're going on a trip, then you need to save for it, not necessarily say, yes, I'm going on a trip, and which credit card or credit cards am I going to use to finance my trip? So I got to use this credit card so I can pay for my flight. I'm going to use this credit card to pay for my hotel room. I'm going to use this credit card to pay for my entertainment and my food. People with good discipline that have great credit scores do not go through that particular thing. They sacrifice and they save and they plan for what's coming up for them when it comes to keeping their credit in line and their scores up. That's what people do. The second thing I want to talk about, the three things that affect your credit score, is knowledge. People actually have the knowledge of the credit scoring system. They know how it works. They know when their credit cards are due. They know when it's going to affect them negatively. If they do pay late, they have that knowledge. You are increasing in your knowledge every time you come right here and listen to the 800 Credit Score Man show. When you come here and you listen, then you are increasing your knowledge. When you read an article about your credit and how it's affected and how you can navigate those waters, you are increasing your knowledge. So give yourself a hand. Give yourself a hand. You are doing at least one of the three things that affect your credit score. You are increasing your knowledge. So when you come here, when you do your quote unquote homework in the credit score KISS, credit score KISS stands for keep it smart and simple. When you do those things, you are increasing your knowledge about how the credit scoring system works and what's really true. I've been doing a lot of research lately on, credit scores, how to increase them, how to maintain them, how the system works. And there are a lot of different, I'm going to say, opinions. I'm not going to say people are necessarily wrong. Some people are wrong, absolutely wrong with some of the advice that they give out. But some people's opinions are just a little bit different, I guess, if you will, than mine. I'll just put it that way. So increase your knowledge. Read and listen to more than one person. I'm definitely not the only person out there talking about credit and improving your credit, but please come in and listen, compare, contrast, and see if you can figure out, who's telling the truth, who's more in line with your thinking when it comes to these things. And so you are increasing your knowledge, and increasing that knowledge will help you increase your credit score and affect your credit score as long as you can apply them, because it's great to have knowledge. It's good to have knowledge. You have all this knowledge in your head, and you know a lot of things, but if you can't apply it, if you can't actually apply it to something, then it does no good. So you're getting your knowledge, but you've got to apply it. And then, so that brings me to the third thing about that can affect your credit score. The third thing that can affect your credit score, first, we said discipline. Second, We talked about knowledge. And the third thing is fear. Yes, fear. People actually fear their own credit. They fear their own situation. They know they're in a bad situation, but they just refuse to actually go and look at their own credit report. They know it's bad, and I think that most people fear it because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to overcome that particular situation. One of our presidents, way back in the day, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, said the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself. So it does no good to place your head in the sand and not confront that particular situation. Take a look at your credit score. Take a look at your credit report. All three of them, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Take a look at them, compare and contrast, see what you can do. You've got to start somewhere. If you want to increase your credit score, 2017 is the year of the credit score comeback. Speaking of credit score comeback, go to Facebook, join that Facebook group. Credit score comeback, join that Facebook group. So fear is, for me, I say false evidence appearing real. And I know Hazel's going to like that. False evidence appearing real. So that's what fear is. So when it comes to your credit score and your credit report, do not be fearful. Go at least take a look at it. Then start to develop a strategy, because you've got to start somewhere. Got to start somewhere to get out of the situation you are in and to become one of those people and get those things that people with good credit have in common. Second half of the show, we are definitely going to talk about things that people have in common that have good credit. So the three things that affect your credit score: discipline, knowledge, and fear. Now, when it comes to fear, I don't know if it's fear because, your mother had bad credit or your father had bad credit or, your fiance, your husband, your spouse has bad credit, and so you don't want to deal with it. But unfortunately or fortunately, credit is a necessary evil, if you will, in our particular society. If you want a house, you want a car, you want to buy some furniture, you're going to need some credit for the typical person. Now, some of you out there that are listening to me, you are massively paid. You don't have that issue. Money is not your concern. So if that's the case, money's not your concern, you may be able to flow through life without having this particular fear. But if you've ever had to decide, should I put gas in my car or should I eat? Should I pay my rent with all of this, or should I just pay a portion of my rent and ask them for additional time? Do I get my cable cut off, or do I put gas in my car so I can get to work, so I can continue to pay this cable bill the next time around? So there is fear associated with it. So I wanted to tackle and say those three things in a nuanced way, not to talk about different things that you can actually do, but the three things that affect your credit score: that discipline, knowledge, and even fear. So don't be fearful. Pick up the phone. I know that my people that are listening that have faith, then you should definitely scratch out number 3. You should not have any fear at all when it comes to tackling your particular situation. Discipline, knowledge, and fear, those are the 3 things that affect your credit score in a nuanced portion than what you will be used to getting from the 800 Credit Score Man right here every Saturday, 1:30 Central Standard Time. All right, people, so let's move on a little bit. Oh, man, look, halfway through the show already. So before I get to the question of the day, I want to do a shout out. So I want to shout out LaTarsha Bailey. LaTarsha Bailey is the First Lady of Living Purpose Church located in Aurora, Illinois. And this week was her birthday. On her birthday, LaTarsha wanted people to go and do a random act of kindness and then post your situation and your story to social media using the hashtag Tarsha's